feeling when you're on top of the world after a huge win, and then, bam, out of nowhere, you hit a massive failure? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're going to dive into this incredible story. It's about a mind-blowing victory, a crushing defeat that followed right after, and this really powerful lesson that ties them both together. Yeah, this pretty much sets the stage for everything. It shows you the two total extremes we're going to explore. On one hand, you have this miracle victory that happens because they followed the rules. On the other, a totally humiliating defeat, all because of one person's secret screw-up. That's the real tension of the whole story, right there. So really, this is a tale of two cities. One is a story of victory, the other a story of defeat. We're going to see this group of people hit an amazing high, then just plummet to this awful low, and then figure out how to climb back up. It's a classic story arc, for sure. But the why behind it all, that's what's so fascinating. All right, let's jump into the first part of this saga, the city of Jericho. Now, you got to picture this place. It was locked down tight. I mean, it looked completely impenetrable. So the Israelites are staring at this impossible task, and the battle plan they get is, well, it's pretty out there. Unconventional is putting it mildly. I mean, just look at this plan. There's no mention of siege towers, no battering rams, nothing you'd expect. The entire strategy is built on patience, discipline, and just straight-up obedience. Can you even imagine marching in total silence for 6 straight days? The only sound is the blast of these trumpets echoing off the walls. That had to be an unbelievable test of faith, not just for the army marching, but for the terrified people watching from inside the city. And they did this a total of 13 times. 13 laps around the city. Just think about that for a second. The sheer repetition, the discipline it would take. This had absolutely nothing to do with military power. It was basically a week-long test in just following instructions exactly as they were given, all leading up to one single massive moment. And what happens when they follow those instructions perfectly? Well, the result is an absolute miracle. On that 7th day, after the final lap, Joshua gives the signal. Everyone lets out this huge shout, and those massive fortified walls, they just crumble. Gone. It was a total, complete victory, exactly like they were told it would be. But here's the turn. In the middle of all this celebration, this incredible victory, a secret is being kept. One person decided to ignore a direct command, and that one choice was about to unravel everything. It was going to have absolutely devastating consequences for everyone. So you have to ask, right? After a miracle like that, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, they've just seen the impossible happen. Their morale has to be through the roof. They are on a serious roll. What could stop them now? Well, the answer comes down to something called devoted things. Okay, so this is the crucial rule they were given. The instructions about the plunder, the loot from Jericho, were super specific. Things like silver and gold had to be set aside for the Lord's treasury. Everything else, totally destroyed. Taking anything for yourself was a huge no-no. It drew a really clear line in the sand. This is God's and this is not. And this is what one guy, a man named Achan, secretly took. He hid it all in his tent. And we're not talking about a small slip-up here. He took this beautiful, expensive robe, but way more important than that, he stole the silver and gold, the very things that were explicitly devoted to the treasury. He didn't just bend the rules, he completely crossed that line. Okay, so now let's see how this one secret act of disobedience actually plays out on the battlefield. The Israelites are fresh off this huge win, they're feeling good, and they turn their attention to this next city called Ai. It's a much smaller place. This should have been a cakewalk. And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? The difference is night and day. For Jericho, they followed God's plan to the letter. For Ai, nope, they went with their own intel. The key to Jericho was total obedience. The hidden problem at Ai was that secret disobedience. And the results? Well, they couldn't have been more different. So what happens? The Israelites get completely routed. They're forced to retreat, totally shocked and afraid. Joshua is just distraught. He cries out to God, and this is the answer he gets. The issue wasn't a bad strategy. The issue was spiritual. One hidden sin led to a massive public failure. And until they dealt with it, God's help was off the table. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you find one guilty person in a crowd of thousands? Well, the source tells us they used something called casting lots. You can kind of think of it like drawing straws, but with the belief that God was controlling the outcome to reveal the truth. It was this systematic process that narrowed it down, from the whole tribe to a specific clan, then to a family, and finally to one single man, Achan. And that's when he confessed to everything.
So once the sin is out in the open, confronted, and the community is, well, purified, God immediately gives them a second chance. And he doesn't just say, go try again. No, he gives Joshua a completely new, super detailed battle plan for taking Ai. And just look at the difference. The first time, it was all about human overconfidence. We got this. The second time, it was a direct command from God, with a totally different strategy involving a bigger force and a clever ambush. The outcome? You guessed it, total victory.
You know, I love this little detail from the story. The plan was brilliant. The main army pretends to run away, which tricks Ai's soldiers into chasing them out of the city. Then, Joshua, from up on a hill, raises his spear. The guys hiding in ambush see the sunlight glinting off the metal, and that's their signal. They rush in and take the now defenseless city. I mean, that is some smart, vivid military coordination. But wait, the story doesn't just end with a battle. It's not just about winning. What Joshua does next is so important. It's designed to make sure that the lesson they just learned the hard way, the lesson about Jericho and Ai, about obedience versus disobedience, is something that nobody will ever forget. So get this, he takes the entire nation and literally splits them in two. He has one half stand on the side of Mount Gerizim, which is all lush and fertile, and that represents the blessings you get from obedience. The other half, they stand on Mount Abel, which is barren and rocky, representing the curses from disobedience. And then the law is read out loud, and the two groups shout their responses back and forth across the valley. Just a powerful, powerful scene. Can you even imagine what that must have felt like? You're not just hearing the words, you are physically standing on the ground that symbolizes the outcome of your choices. It takes these abstract ideas of blessing and curse, the very things they just experienced at Jericho and Ai, and makes them tangible, physical, and real. And that really is the main takeaway here. This story isn't just some dry historical record. It's meant to be a first-hand experience that was recorded for us. The insane victory, the shocking defeat, that whole ceremony on the mountains, it's all designed to be this visible, audible lesson that was preserved so that we, today, can learn from it. So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. For Achan, his sin was something physical, a robe, some gold. But it really makes you think, what are the invisible things for us today? You know, the hidden compromises, the little acts of disobedience we think no one sees, the things we keep for ourselves that maybe should be devoted somewhere else. Could those be the things that lead to our own unexpected failures, especially right after our biggest wins? Definitely something to think about.